Eat, drink, sleep, crypto, Timo. Let's go!
So Animal Farm is actually a V2 of a project called Manor Farm, and Manor Farm was the initial yield farm that we created, which was a centralized ownership, decentralized platform. So it has traditional founder and developer payment models, but of course it's a DeFi yield farm platform, and the idea for Manor Farm was to build a traditional yield farm and then pass ownership of it to Animal Farm. And we're using the theme of George Orwell's book Animal Farm, where the farmer has control of the farm and he's being oppressive to the animals on the farm, and then they rise up and revolt and take ownership of the farm. And when they do, they have a sense of ownership, and their yield production goes up and the performance of the farm goes up. And it's kind of funny because at the end of that book you have a new form of centralized control where the pigs become the new owners, and you have that kind of centralized control again. But Animal Farm is really focusing on the initial idea of how when people take ownership of their own future, they're able to have a sense of value there, and it allows them to perform at a greater in a greater way, and allows them to reap the rewards of their work and of their capital. So that's the idea for Animal Farm. And the reason why I bring up Manor Farm is because we have a very good idea on how Animal Farm will affect the price of drip from Manor Farm, because we've already been through that. We've already had a launch of a yield farm where people are being rewarded for adding drip liquidity and other non-native liquidity tokens and pairs. And with Manor Farm, what happened is, on the lead up, of course, attention was on Manor Farm. So people were, building capital for there. Maybe instead of depositing into drip, they were putting their capital aside to put in Manor Farm, or whatever their mind state was. But when Manor Farm launched, what we saw was drip did a small correction, something like a 10% correction. And this was because some people had drip in their wallet, and they sold a portion of it to make BUSD to pair with drip and stake it in Manor Farm. But what this did was add more liquidity to drip. So that capital didn't actually leave drip. It just went from being only on the buy side of the order book to being a full liquidity pair. And then very shortly after that, because there's only so much drip in circulation, the vast majority of it is locked up in contracts. The new demand for people to buy drip, to add liquidity to it, to use it in the Manor Farm, caused a 3x plus pump in price in the first couple weeks. And Animal Farm takes the benefits that was allocated to drip and improves it on a major way, especially with the improvements that we've made over the past couple weeks. And we can speak to that. Really, I had an idea. I'm not sure. I saw that you gave me a list of questions, but I'm open for anybody to ask anything. So I didn't even go through them. I was like, he can, he can ask me whatever he wants. I don't care. I prefer it that way. So I'm not sure if you're going to ask about this, but I can get into it now. We had a initial structure for Animal Farm where Dog BUSD, Dog BNB, and Drip BUSD was what was farming the governance token for Animal Farm. And there's two assets. There's a reward asset or a token, and there's a governance token on Animal Farm. And previously, you could farm the governance token, which gives you ownership of the platform as a whole with either Drip BUSD or Dogs BUSD or Dog BNB or single asset dogs. And we made an adjustment there because the dog token has a variable tax applied to it, which acts as a form of vesting without the negative externalities of vesting. So when I say that, I'm speaking to the fact that when you vest a token, when a token is locked up, it has predictable unlock periods where everybody knows, okay, in 1 month, a bunch of tokens are going to be released. The month after that, a bunch of tokens are going to be released. Or next week, a bunch of tokens are going to be released. And what happens is people that have the tokens, even if they are supporters of the project, will front run that, knowing that, okay, in a week when all these tokens hit the market, we're going to have a price correction. So I better sell before. And if they're a supporter, then maybe if they think I'll buy back in lower. That is obviously harmful to the project if you have these kinds of predictable events where the circulating supply is going to have a massive increase.
1 second, Forex. Just to clarify to everyone, this is actually what my next question is, which is what were the hurdles that you've dealt with since the Animal Farm's first launch that's required all these months of downtime to troubleshoot and resolve this? So I know you're already talking about the front running, but if there's any other elements that kind of can also contributed towards you needing to relaunch the Animal Farm and it taking so long, if you could include that in your explanation right now too, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So so instead of having a traditional vesting model where the tokens are locked with predictable unlock periods, we're using a variable tax model where the token, the dog token, when you buy it, get it, someone sends it to you, when you farm it, if you win it in the dog's roulette game, however you get these dog tokens, they start off with a 90% tax. And this acts as a form of vesting because, of course, people are not going to want to sell with a 90% tax, but they can stake it in what we call our loyalty contract, the dog pound. And when they do, their variable tax on the dog token is reduced by 1% a day. And this allows them to basically unlock their dog tokens over a period of time, but it's up to everybody to make their own decision when it makes sense for them to sell the token, if it ever does make sense for them to sell the token, based on the tax that's applied to it. And when you have virtually no sell pressure because the tax starts out so high, you're going to have rapid price appreciation. And at some point, it will likely make sense for some percentage of the holders to sell. So if they have say a 50% tax because they've been in the loyalty contract, the dog pound, for a month, but the price is up 10x, they may think, okay, I'm going to pay a 50% tax, but the price is up 10x. That's a 5x for me, and maybe it makes sense for me to sell right now for a 5x profit, even though I'm paying a 50% tax. And people will make their own decision on when it makes sense for them to do that, so you don't have these predictable unlock periods. Everybody is deciding based on their own preferences and their own risk management when it makes sense for them to sell. So you have all of the positives of a vesting model where tokens are not hitting the market immediately without the predictable unlocking period. And better yet, a traditional vesting model only locks tokens. There is no incentive there. It's just your tokens are locked. When you have a variable tax like this, you can have the incentive structure, the stick and carrot, where the tax that is applied to the dog token gets swapped for BNB and swapped for BUSD. So 2/3 of the transaction, or 2/3 of the tax on the transaction, gets swapped for BNB and paid out to the dog pound. So those people that are having their tax reduced every day are also earning BNB from the people that are selling and having that tax applied. And 1/3 of the tax is swapped for BUSD and paid out to the pig pen, the governance staking pool. This is where you stake your AFP tokens, your pig tokens, to get a greater share ownership of the platform, and that's where you collect 75% of deposit and withdrawal fees from the platform go to the pig pen. The 1/3 of the tax that's applied to the dog token gets swapped for BUSD, paid out to the pig pen, and this is very important, capital that is staked on Animal Farm gets lent to PancakeSwap for 30 to 40% APY. This APY gets paid out in the form of cake, and then this cake is swapped for BUSD and paid out to the pig pen. So if you're in the non-native staking pools earning the dog token, you're also lending this capital in a trustless, decentralized way to PancakeSwap, earning an additional 30 to 40% APY on it. And the way that you collect this additional APY is by utilizing those dogs to farm pigs, because now in the new model, the only way that you can earn pigs is by buying them off the market or farming them with dogs BNB or dogs BUSD, or getting into the auto compounding dog pound, which takes the BNB that you're earning, buys dogs with it, pairs it, and gets you into the dogs BNB pool. And then staking those pigs in the pig pen, where you're now getting that BUSD that's being earned through the back-end lending to PancakeSwap. And of course, there's going to be some portion of people who are earning dogs, but don't want to use those dogs to farm pigs. And those people who are doing that, they're still getting their capital lent out on the back end to PancakeSwap. So they're still earning that 30 to 40% APY, but it's getting paid out to the people that are using their dogs to farm pigs or are buying pigs directly off the market. So previously, having Drip be one of the assets that can earn the pig token basically was a thorn in the side of the game theory. And it's something that I was not happy with for months, but I also knew that if we were going to be removing Drip as one of the assets that can earn Animal Farm pigs, it would take away value from Drip on the platform. So I was not comfortable with removing it, and it was one of those things where it's like, I would like to change this, but if I change it, it needs to be done in a way that adds value to Drip as well, because it's very clear that it's a major improvement to the game theory of Animal Farm if the only tokens that can earn the pig governance token is dogs. That's a clear major improvement to the game theory, because then it means anybody who is earning pigs is going through this vesting process, is generating BNB dividends for the dog pound and additional BUSD dividend to the pig pen. And they're also, if they're farming those dogs, allowing for more capital be lent out to PancakeSwap, which also creates more BUSD to be lent out to the pig pen. So it's clearly a much better model to not have Drip farming pigs, but I did not want to take that value away from Drip. So
and just to clarify right here, right? This is new details that's pertaining, that actually affects the whole ecosystem. And for people that keep seeing the launch date for the Animal Farm, it's gets extended out a little bit. The last time that we had the launch date, that delay, the contribution that's coming into play right now are the changes that you're talking about here right now. This is actually more beneficial.
Yeah.
So it's worth the extra wait because of the level of impact that these little changes actually has as a ripple across everything, not just the Animal Farm, but also for Drip Network, the Drip token.
Yeah. And I will explain. I want to just go through the game theory real quick, which I'm like 90% done, and then I'll just go into detail why we had these delays specifically. But I wanted to add value to Drip if we were removing it from its ability to farm pigs. So what we did was move Drip to the Dog's Master Chef contract. Initially, the reason why I didn't do this is because our fee manager, which is the contract which is taking the deposit withdrawal fees, did not have the ability to basically decide where those fees went. So if before I made these improvements, if we had moved the Drip BUSD pair to the Dog's Master Chef, the fee manager would be selling Drip for BUSD and paying it out to the pig pen, and not only would we be not allowing Drip to farm pigs, we would also be adding sell pressure to Drip. So this is why I initially did not do it. But we made an improvement to the fee manager where now we can decide how those fees are allocated. And when I say we can decide, this is something that we put in place before deployment. So once it's set, it's set. But we have the ability to make an adjustment before we set it. And this allowed us to now use the BUSD associated with the Drip BUSD pair to buy back Drip. So what happens now is when Drip BUSD is deposited on Animal Farm, the fee, the deposit withdrawal fee, takes those LP tokens, it unpairs them, it sends the Drip to the tax vault, the Drip tax vault for the faucet, it takes the BUSD and it buys Drip, and then it sends that Drip to the tax vault. So it's not a regular buyback mechanism where you're just sending BUSD, you're just buying. It actually has a massive positive compounding effect on the Drip price because you're taking Drip from the sell side of the order book, you're removing it, and you're taking BUSD and adding it to the buy side of the order book.
So I want to stress that part for everyone. He's saying that this is going to help add buy pressure to Drip.
Massive buy pressure to Drip. Anybody that was that remembers Hex, right? Hex was a big project. I guess it's a pretty popular project in some spaces. Drip did like a 10,000x in the first year or the first 8 months, say.
Wait, Drip did or Hex did?
No, sorry, Hex. Well, okay. Drip has done, if you include the ROI paid out on Drip has done thousands of X as well. I don't know, I don't know what the calculation would be off the top of my head, but when you include yield into the Drip price appreciation, it did thousands of X as well. But I just want to speak to a specific mechanic in Hex that allowed it to do this major price move in the first year. And it was that the developer of it had 90+% of the liquidity. And when you control the liquidity, what you can do is unpair a portion of that liquidity, and that's taking your token from the sell side, which makes it so when you add the BUSD, or in his case ETH, to the buy side, it has a greater impact. And you could remove, say, 10% of the liquidity and then use that BUSD to buy back the token, and you're going to have a much greater than 10% price impact because it has a compounding effect. So this is how Hex was able to do 10,000x, because the developer had 90+% of the liquidity and could effectively control the price to do whatever he wanted it to do. But every time he would do that, he's giving up some portion of his LPs, giving up his power to be able to do that a little bit more and a little bit more. So it's not sustainable. With Drip and with our model, it's not one centralized figure that has a limited amount of LPs that is doing this. It's every time someone deposits into the Drip BUSD pool, the fees associated with that, which is an LP token, unpairs those LPs, removing sell pressure, and then adding buy pressure, which has a compound positive effect, and removes those additional drip tokens that are being bought from the market and unpaired from the liquidity pool, and sends them to the faucet tax vault, which relieves the pressure on Drip to have to emit tokens to pay out that dividend. So it's not just having a positive impact on the price through directly adding BUSD to the buy side of the book, it's also relieving the pressure on Drip to have to emit new tokens to pay out the dividends, which is huge. So this is going to have a massive positive impact on Drip, that mechanic alone. But on top of that, Drip has the lowest fees for non-native farming on Animal Farm. So when someone goes to the Animal Farm and they look at the platform and they see, okay, how can I earn dogs? How can I start yield farming on the platform? Then they'll see, okay, Drip has the highest multiplier. So that means all things even, if it has the same TVL as another farm or pool, it's going to pay out higher APY. So effectively, 35% more dog tokens are allocated to be paid out to the Drip BUSD pool. So it has the highest multiplier, it has the lowest deposit withdrawal fees, and you can use the Drip Liberation contract to add that liquidity to Drip for free. So it has the lowest barrier for entry out of all of the pairs on Animal Farm. And then on top of that, it has this buyback mechanism where instead of the capital being used to add sell pressure to that token, it's being used to add buy pressure to that token, where all the other assets, all the other non-native assets, I should say, so you deposit Chainlink BUSD LPs. What happens is you deposit it, there's a 2% deposit, 2% withdrawal fee. It unpairs those tokens, it sells them for BUSD. 75% of that BUSD gets paid out to the pigpen. 25% goes into a liquidity helper contract. And when that liquidity helper contract meets a threshold, meaning there's more than $2,500 worth of BUSD on that contract, it buys the dog token, adds liquidity to it. And this is another mechanism which is going to be constantly adding buy pressure to the dog token. So the new game theory and the new mechanic adjustments that we made to Animal Farm are massive. They're going to cause a ton more buy pressure to Drip, but just as important and even more important to Animal Farm, the impact that this is going to have on the game theory of Animal Farm is just massive, because now the only way that you're going to get an ownership of Animal Farm is by buying those pig tokens off the market or utilizing dogs to do it. And when you utilize dogs, you're creating all kinds of value for the platform, and you're removing dog tokens from circulation for a period of time. And that period of time is 100% up to the user, what they're comfortable with paying as far as a tax relative to the price appreciation. And we're going to see massive price appreciation due to the fact that we have all these various demand for the token, but effectively no incentive to add sell pressure, because especially initially there's a large tax which acts as investing and huge incentive to stay in these liquidity in these staking pools because of the BNB and BUSD dividend. And Animal Farm is the only yield aggregating lending platform where you can earn a high compound interest in BNB and BUSD. Actually, it's the only one where you can earn compound interest in BNB, and it's the only one where you can earn compound interest in BUSD, and we do both. So it's just, it's massive, right? This is something that takes what people love about PancakeSwap farming and PancakeSwap lending and improves on it in a major way. A massive improvement to the incentive structure, a greater yield paid out, and all of the benefit that you get from staking in PancakeSwap, you get from staking in Animal Farm, because when you stake in Animal Farm, it gets lent out to PancakeSwap on your behalf, so you're earning in PancakeSwap as well as if you were in there. So it's a major improvement.